Hello and welcome to Who's On Next, the podcast where if you learn something, it was by complete accident. Today I have with me a voice actor who's primarily known for his work in anime, such as he's been voices on Pokemon, voices on YuGiOh. He's Casey Jones on the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And he's currently the voice of Megatron on Transformers Cyberverse. It is Marc Thompson.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm surviving the corona times, but hanging in there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember I had a joke a couple months back where I was thinking, like, dang it, given everything that's going on right now, I think it would have been perfect to name my podcast, like, Quarantine or something like that. Like, I didn't do that because given everything that's been going on for months, it would have been so perfect.
Right.
All right, I guess, where did you start acting? I guess, where did you get your start?
Well, the long story is I got cast in, like, the high school shows and all that, and then kind of got the bug from there. I always tell people, like, I wasn't athletic, and I was kind of so academically, but when I found theater, I found, like, something that I could, do reasonably well and that I really enjoyed. And I had a lot of great teachers and coaches that gave me tons of encouragement and support. And so I went and studied acting, and I got into NYU, which is what brought me to New York City. And then my first, like, legit, like, break that kind of got me into the whole voiceover stuff that I do now was I auditioned for MTV, and I got on this show called Daria, which was a spin-off of Beavis and Butthead, and I played a bunch of characters. I was like Kevin, the football player. All right, babe, cool. And Mr. DiMartino, Daria Morgendorfer. You come to my office at 3 p.m. or we are going to have problems. And then I had, like, Mr. O'Neill, the values teacher, and a bunch of other people, and then that kind of opened the door to all this voiceover work I've been able to do, and it's kind of crazy to think how that one thing basically changed the course of my life in a lot of ways. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I find it interesting because I remember looking at the cast of Daria when I remember I was looking into it because I had found out that it was a completely different cast from Beavis and Butthead, because I think that was recorded in LA, if I remember correctly.
It? Yeah, I don't know.
Because it was mostly celebrities or people that the creator knew. Mike Judge. Yeah. And I just found it interesting because going through Daria, I was like, this is like all New York people.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Are you from New York?
No, I'm originally from the Midwest.
Oh, neat.
And
okay.
Now I live on the East Coast.
Oh, cool.
But I live more down south in the East Coast.
Gotcha.
But I guess another big thing is because Pokemon has been a huge thing, like for years with you and many other people that are in the New York area. And you, unlike most other people that work in the New York area that have worked on Pokemon, it's either a mix of human characters and Pokemon characters, like either incidentals or recurring. And I guess because I've interviewed Tara Sands and a couple other people from the New York area, and I guess I've never really asked the question, how does the process work for, I guess, auditioning for a human character as opposed to, like, an actual, like, Pokemon that makes, like, creature noises or just says their name?
Right. So for human characters, they usually give you a couple lines of their dialogue, and I've done it both ways. Like, some seasons I've gotten to see the actual scene and kind of try dubbing it and kind of get an idea of what this character looks like, and then other times it's like a future season that they're getting ready for that we haven't gotten from Japan yet, and they'll just give me a character description and maybe like a drawing of it, and I'll be able to, like, try to come up with a voice without having to match Flap right away, which gives you a little bit more freedom in the cadence and the timing of it. So usually for the human voices you get those lines of dialogue. But a lot of times with the Pokemon, especially because there's so many, you'll be in a session and they'll be like, okay, here, we need you to do this one. It's, a talking pig that shoots flames out of its snort. It's like, oh, okay. So and it's usually saying their name, over and over again. So you just have to like come up with something that is kind of similar to what they did in the Japanese, and they'll kind of throw a bunch at you. So that's always interesting and fun.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like a creature noise or sometimes it's a name, so I've never fully known if it was like an actor's choice to do that or if it was like a combination of the director or the actor, like what the Pokemon would sound like.
Right. Usually, I think Lisa, the director, is the one kind of making those initial choices. I think every once in a while the company might have maybe a specific direction they want, whether it's the noise or the name, and I don't know if there's a certain formula they're following or if it's just just whatever feels right for that particular creature. So I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, because I guess it's always fascinated me with Pokemon because it never seemed 100% consistent depending on what it is. Because sometimes it's either a name or a creature noise.
Right.
And I was just always fascinated by that, especially given some actors double down so much on Pokemon. Because I remember... Well, and you've doubled down for, I think, like multiple human characters, because I remember you were Maxie back in the day when I was a kid with the Ruby and Sapphire generation of anime.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's been Gliscor, which that was a big one for you, because that was one of the most recurring Pokemon for a period.
Yep.
Yeah. Was Pokemon just a thing with, given how many characters there were, was it like... Because I've known shows like Transformers or Ninja Turtles or things like that where there's so many characters. Sometimes it would literally just be during a session, they would just ask you, hey, do you want to play this character too? Or would it just be another audition process?
Yeah, for me at least, most of the time it was, do you want to play this other character too? Like a lot of times, and Lisa and different directors over the years, you kind of, they get a feel for what the actors can do and what voices they have in their wheelhouse, and so a lot of times they can do it that way. I'd say for the main characters are the ones that are going to be recurring. That's when they'll really do the auditions. But a lot of times they'll throw something at you and say, "Oh, I need you to be this, creature or that person in this episode, and I know you'll do an okay or a good job with this." So.
Right, because I've been watching the 2003 Ninja Turtles recently because I actually never watched it as a kid.
Oh, cool.
And I've noticed a lot of the main cast I've heard playing a lot of background characters or things like that. And because last night, like, I was watching one episode and I heard Veronica Taylor like as 4 different characters in one episode, or I heard Wayne Grayson as a couple characters, things like that.
Yeah, the New York voiceover community is pretty tight knit, and it's you kind of, everybody kind of knows everybody, and everybody recommends everybody, and it's pretty cool.
I guess there's another thing I'm very interested in with the anime dubbing is dubbing, because you've done some of the Pokemon movies, because you were Kyurem in the Kyurem film, things like that. Is dubbing anime film different from dubbing like a normal episode of Pokemon, or is it about the exact same?
For the most part, it's the same. Like every once in a while, it always depends on the project, because like every once in a while, they want a more naturalistic style, especially if it's going to be on film, because it'll be, if you're watching on a big screen, you want to maybe be a little bit more subtle with the performance, because otherwise it would be like so overwhelming. But then again, if that's in keeping with the tone of the project or the character, then you go all out, high energy.
Right.
So it always comes back to the tone of the piece. So like I think sometimes like the stuff I do for Gundam, they usually direct me to be a lot more naturalistic and try to be more subtle. And for Pokemon, a lot of times I get to play and be more character-y and over the top, and
Something I've actually been curious about lately, because there's been this recent thing in New York with the NYAV, which has been this big thing with LA voice actors or Texas voice actors and New York voice actors, like essentially collaborating on a project. Because you've been in a few of those projects, like I think Gundam Origins was one.
Yeah,
I remember. And I guess Is that any different from like a normal New York project? Like, do you ever meet any of the other like New York people, or not New York people, the people from LA or Texas that do record for those? Or is that just you record in one area and then those people record in another area?
Yeah, it's mostly like the latter. It's like even in New York, it was rare when you get to record with the other actors in the booth. Like when we did Ninja Turtles, that was very special and very cool because they 4Kids had a big booth where they could have 4 mics in there, and we got to go in there and do, group records, which is always more fun because you get to play off of each other and the energy's different and it just helps the scene flow much better. But most of the time when you record, you're just by yourself in the booth. So whether they're in LA or coming in an hour after you in New York, it doesn't make that much of a difference then because they're piecing it all together anyways. So every once in a while, I've met some of the actors from LA just because every once in a while they'll be bi-coastal and kind of come into New York for stuff. And NYAV, we'll see. A lot of times you'll see each other coming and going from things, or sometimes at conventions you'll get to meet people, or I've known some people from New York that moved out to LA, and like I used to. I don't know if Tara remembers me or not, but Tara and I used to do stuff for 4Kids, and then Sean Schimmel moved out to LA, and he's out there, but I knew him from New York. So sometimes there's stuff like that, but for the most part, you're kind of by yourself anyway. So there's not a lot of group records that I know of.
I've been seeing that a lot the past couple of years with some New York voice actors, because I think like Rachel Lillis moved out to LA, Veronica.
Yep.
Yeah, I've just been noticing that a lot more the past few years, which I think is really cool. Seeing the transition from the New York dubbing scene to LA.
Yeah, I hear there's more work out there. I don't know what it's like when you actually get out there, but.
Well, because I guess there was one thing I remember seeing when I was going through your filmography that kind of intrigued me, because I saw Welcome to the Wayne.
Oh yeah,
was one of them. And that's a very mixed cast of like LA and New York.
That was through Nickelodeon, and we recorded that over at Viacom's place in New York. But they also I think you're right. They had some actors in LA and some here, and it's as technology's gotten better, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter because they can do phone patches and direct lines, and so they're not limited by the city you're in so much anymore. So
there's actually a question I like to ask a lot of voice actors, which it's not more so what a favorite role is, but if you can remember, I guess, a specific role that you really wanted that you almost got. You didn't get it, but you got close, if you can remember.
Wow. That is a really good question. That I almost got. I mean, I think I was super pumped to get Casey Jones, but I think I would have rather have gotten the Turtles, and I think I was in like, I think I got a call back. I think I was pretty close for one of those, but I was definitely happy to be Casey Jones, but I would have loved to have been like Mikey or Donatello, but that's the first one that comes to mind. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
I was almost a turtle. I don't know which one, but I was almost a turtle. There's too many turtles on the show anyway. I don't remember which is which. That's actually something, because you're on Transformers Cyberverse, you were on Ninja Turtles, you've been involved in YuGiOh, and I guess, were those ever big things to you as a kid, or is it just like...
Oh no! Oh my gosh, they were huge to me as a kid. Like those are the 3 after school, cartoons that I would like get so pumped up about. And I had tons of GI Joes. I even had the aircraft carrier that you could,
like the $100-something aircraft carrier. Like
yeah. My dad, I got it one year for Christmas, and he mounted it on a door. Like he went and got, like at a hardware store, so that I could like lift it off and lean it against the wall or whatever. And it was awesome. And I was so pumped to get G.I. Joe. And actually, to your previous question, I was very close to getting Duke. And I would have loved to have gotten Duke. But then again, the same thing with Turtles. I got Cobra Commander and Destro and Zartan, so I couldn't really complain.
I say that's like the dream pack of villains on that show, basically.
Yeah. I always I'm more drawn to the heroes, but I end up doing a lot of the villains because they get to really chew the scenery and have more fun voices or whatever. But I like the idea of being a hero, but the villain voices are maybe more fun to do. So getting to be a part of G.I. Joe was awesome, and even now Transformers is really cool because I love Transformers growing up, Ninja Turtles. So I've been really blessed that I get to kind of be a part of these franchises that I grew up with, and so that means a great deal to me, and I'm really, really grateful I get to be a part of those.
When you were doing those projects, was it ever hard to did you ever have the cartoon in the back of your mind where you almost had a hard time trying to separate the original voice? Like when you were trying to audition for it or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to err more on the side of leaning towards what has come before, because to me, those characters are iconic. So if I do something drastically different just to prove that I can put my own spin on it, to me that takes away from the character and kind of as an audience member, if you're going in, if you're a fan of any of those things from the 80s, you're like, well, this is what they're supposed to sound like. So if they sound too different, then to me, you kind of lose a lot of the fans right away, because it's like, well, that's not Megatron, or that's not Cobra Commander, or, But then you do have to find that balance of honoring what came before, but then not being, handcuffed to that, or feeling like you're trapped only being able to do that, and feeling free to put your own nuance in it and put your own spin on it, but not so much so that it's totally different than what has already been established. Because the reason those for shows that have a long running history like that, I think you got to honor what came before, because there's a reason those shows are still popular today, and because those characters are beloved, and so you want to honor that, and you don't want to drift too far from what's been established.
Right. I mean, your Megatron, I think, is a very unique take, because it's almost got a bit of a I don't know exactly, like a British spin to the voice a little bit. It's more theatrical, I think. Which I guess I'm curious as to what the not even that I dislike the performance, it's a good performance. I was wondering what the direction for that was specifically to get to that point for Megatron, because Megatron, I feel, has always had a very specific voice.
Right. I mean, I was definitely trying to emulate Frank Welker's the gravel and kind of the kind of low, throaty, chesty quality. The British thing just kind of came to me like there's moments where in some of those episodes he kind of sounds very, formal and almost like Shakespearean, level. So I think that's probably where some of that came in. To be honest, there wasn't a lot of character direction on that one. It was more, I think they liked what they heard in the auditions of people, and they were obviously focused on the story beats and making sure everything flowed. But I think the casting, the casting was, from what I remember, they were trying to get pretty close to the 80s feel. So I can't remember specifically in the sides, but I remember them kind of steering you towards that. And certainly, when you look at the Optimus's voice in Cyberverse, and we're definitely honoring, what's come before in that show. I think a lot with the voices there.
Right. Because I always thought that it was trying to be like a fusion of the original Megatron, and it had a bit of the I guess the sophistication of the Beast Wars Megatron. So I thought that's what it was trying to do a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a good fusion of the two.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't specifically told to me that way, but I was trying to maybe fuse the original one and then like this, like I said, like almost like a Shakespearean level, malevolence and kind of, like epic quality,
Right.
All villains have to be British. That's a rule somewhere. So
actually, there's something I'm very curious about, because you were Duke Devlin on YuGiOh, which is another big role.
Yeah,
which is one of my personal favorites on the show. And he didn't show up till much later. I think season 3. I haven't caught up with YuGiOh in years, so someone's gonna be like, it was season 2, episode 38, something like that. But
I don't remember either.
Because he became a very recurring character. And I guess there's something I'm very intrigued about, because you know about abridged series, right?
I haven't actually watched it, but I think I've heard people talk about it before.
Yeah, because I've just always wondered if some of the voice actors for YuGiOh, because I know some of them they're aware of the YuGiOh abridged internet series. Yeah. And I was just wondering how some of the voice actors feel about it, because I know some of them really enjoy it, from what I've known.
Yeah. I personally never checked it out. I know Wayne, if I'm thinking of the correct thing, Wayne has a kind of an issue with it, but I don't know. I honestly don't know much about it. I've never actually listened to it. I've just kind of heard people at different Q&As ask about it. So
I think Eric Stewart was one I remember saying he wasn't a big fan of it. Like that's the one I distinctly remember, because I know Wayne, I think, has actually worked with the guy that made it once or twice at a convention. So I'm not 100% on that, because I think they've been at a convention a couple times together on a panel. So
wow, okay,
yeah, I might be thinking wrong on that, but that's what I remember, at least from one video from a few years ago. So
right.
I guess another one, because you have recorded multiple audiobooks, because we actually talked about this before the interview, because you've done multiple stuff for Star Wars and other types of audiobooks. And I guess I've never really spoken to someone who's done audiobooks. So I guess what's the main process doing that compared to doing just a normal television series?
I mean, in some ways it's very similar, but in other ways it's completely different. And I always tell people, like, of all the things that I do as a voiceover actor, between like commercials, animation, live action ADR and dubbing, like audiobooks is the most challenging work that I do as a voiceover actor, because it's the most time consuming. It takes the most amount of prep time and the most amount of record time, because like I guess everybody's process is different, but for me, I'll get a book and it'll be like 300 to 400 pages, and I've got to try to read it usually in about a week and a half or 2 weeks if I'm lucky. So I'll read through the book, and then I'll find all the times that there's a character in that book that has dialogue, and I write down anything that the author has told me about this character that would tell me what the voice is going to be like. So I'd write down, are they male or female? Are they, in Star Wars case, are they alien? Have they appeared in anything before, like a video game or another series or one of the movies, or what's their age? What is their, personality characteristics? Are they shy? Are they selfish? Are they braggadocious? Are they, easily angered? Like, what are the things about them? And then I go back and I'll, like, quote unquote cast it. And what that means is for each character that I wrote down, I'll try to come up with a voice for them. And what I do is I record a sample of what I think I want to do for that voice on my phone. And then when it's time for me to go and record, when I get to that section of the book, I'll bring out my phone, I'll play the line or two I read of the voice, try to get it in my head, and then I'll go back in and record the dialogue. And usually about the first third of the book, I have to use my phone a lot. But then as the book gets going, I usually start to kind of internalize those voices enough where I can start just ping ponging and just going back and forth. But you're doing it, like, for me, it takes about 4 to 5 days from like 10 in the morning till 6 at night reading, and they'll let me out for food and bathroom and stuff like that. But otherwise it's like, you're just talking, performing, and it's a lot like a one person show in a lot of ways, because you're doing all the characters and the narration and everything. And so the finished product is usually something that I'm pretty proud of, but the process of making it is very, very physically and emotionally draining.
Do you have to do it like all in one day, or is it like over a few day period that you do this?
Oh, it's over a few days. Because there's a lot of stopping and starting. I'll fumble my words. I'll read something incorrectly. So like it's many, many days. It's like 4 to 5 days of recording to get it all done.
Yeah, because I guess audiobooks is something. I guess it's something I don't really think about, or I think most people don't think about with voiceover.
Yeah.
But I guess I was going back to Tim Curry's reading of The Christmas Carol a couple years ago, and I really thought about it, and I was thinking about it. I was like, he's doing everything.
Yeah.
Like, I never even thought about it, really. Like, he's doing all the characters, he's reading the emotional input. Like, it's still acting in a way.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I just never really thought about it until, like, years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's that same thrill of, like, I got to see Patrick Stewart did a one-man show of A Christmas Carol on Broadway, and I got to see that, and it was, like, so compelling, because not only is the story just a great story, and it's very interesting, but when you see one person, do Jacob Marley, and then do the Ghost, and then do the Ghost of Future Past, and then, Bob Cratchit, and like when he's bouncing back for all the characters, it's like there's an added element of, like, you're enjoying the performance, but then there's the added element of, like, how are they going to pull that off? Oh wow, they pulled that off, or how they get, like, it's like a tightrope act of watching them navigate all the different characters and all the different scenes, and so it's kind of cool.
I can't even imagine. I didn't even know that was a thing he had done. I knew he had done that, but I didn't know he had done a one-man show, because there's so many characters in that story.
Yeah, you should check it out. I'm pretty sure there's a DVD of it somewhere, or a videotape of it somewhere, but it was awesome. It was really cool.
I remember I interviewed Erica Schroeder a few years back, and there was something that I remember asking her, and because you had involvement in this too. Which I guess it's a bit of a controversial question, is the original One Piece dub from New York.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a bit of a controversial question because there's the new dub and there's the 4Kids dub. Uh-huh. And I guess, what is your major opinion on the idea that One Piece has, because there's your voice for, say, because you played Don Krieg, there's your voice for him and there's someone else. Like, I guess, what's it feel like to know that there's two different versions of a dub you worked on now?
Right. I don't know. I mean, I think if I were, there's always, if I'm being totally honest, there's always that part of you that's competitive and that feels like, well, I want them to like my version, or, I want to, but then on the other hand, it's kind of like, when different actors play different characters in plays like Hamlet or Death of a Salesman or whatever, it's like everybody brings their own take to some of these roles, and it's fun sometimes to watch different versions of the same show played by different performers to see how they do it differently, or what their style is and what they bring to it, and you can enjoy both, but it's sometimes just fun to see, like, that's what his take on that character is, so I guess it's a little bit of both for me. But I think all actors want to be liked, and so there's that part of me that wants the accolades or whatever, and so it hurts if people don't like what you do, but you got to just roll with it, and you can't pay too much attention to that, because you can't please everybody. And that can, like, you don't want to get in your head about stuff. You have to kind of just, you have to do what you find interesting and what you think works, and hope other people might like it as well.
Right, because I remember when I was talking to Erica about it, she had this idea of, because the 4Kids version, I'd say, is viewed more as the kid-friendly version of the One Piece dub, and the Funimation version is the more, I guess, the traditional version of One Piece. And I think she said she liked the idea because if her kid wants to watch One Piece, they can watch the 4Kids version, and then when they're older, they can go and watch the traditional version to see how both versions were done. And I just think, cool. I think that's just kind of a fascinating mindset to have for it.
Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it. Absolutely.
All right, but I gotta say, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It was really fun.
Is there anything you want to promote? Like anything that you can think of?
No, I think I think the stuff that I'm trying to think if I have anything new coming out, because I think a lot of the shows, well, actually there's a new show that's in, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it yet. I probably shouldn't say anything. You always have to sign these NDAs, and I never know what I'm allowed to and what I'm not to, so let me just say, not right now, but thank you.
There's something. We don't know what.
There's something coming up that I'm excited about, and it will be on Netflix, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet. So,
because I know there's a new season of Cyberverse that I don't know if it just came out or if it got put on Netflix. I might be remembering some.
Oh, did it? Okay. There's that. Something. I thought that was already out, but there's.
I can't remember.
Else I don't know if your viewers. This was like a kiddie cartoon, so I don't know if people will be into it or not, or your listeners. But I'm pretty excited about it. So.
I was say, because I was like, I couldn't remember if the new season of Cyberverse had just come out, or I might just be thinking of, I think it came out on Netflix just now. It was one of the two.
Is that true? Is Cyberverse on Netflix?
Yeah, it got put on Netflix last year, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.